Hi everyone, welcome to Poonam's Kitchen. Today's video is part 2 of the Indian meal planning and pre-preparation. In part 1, I shared with you how I make several pastes that help me in making fresh Indian meals each time. I got a very positive feedback about that video, and many people found those tips to be very useful in their everyday lives. If you haven't already seen that video, I would highly recommend that you watch that video. I'll share the link to that video at the end of this one. Here I would like to mention that I am an NRI residing in the US. Many of you will be able to relate to the need for storing and pre-preparations and meal planning, considering all the juggling done between home and work, kids and social life, and no external help. In today's video, I'll continue to share with you my meal planning ideas for a long term. That is, the things that I do will last several weeks. So this is not something that is done every weekend. Here you see me making a batter of chickpea flour, that is besan, to make kadhi pakoras, Punjabi Kadhi pakoras. Now this batter has chickpea flour, onions and several spices. Now I prefer to make my pakoras in an appam patra, that is an appe pan. You could also fry these pakoras. I just prefer this way because it's a non-fried version. And for today lunch, I'll be making curry. Now since the appe pan is already in use and all the other dishes and ingredients are outside on the kitchen shelf, if I make an extra batch of pakoras, it would take me much lesser time than if I were to start afresh on any other day. So today I'll make an extra batch of pakoras, something that will last me at least 2 or 3 times more over the next few months to make curry. So at those times, making curry would be a very fast process since the pakoras would already be ready. And while I was waiting for the first batch of pakoras to get cooked, I whipped up the yogurt to make curry. So parallelly, work is going on the other gas stove as well, preparing that day's lunch. I'll show you how to store the extra pakoras so that they last several months. And these pakoras are not only for curry, they serve as a great snacking option, a healthy snacking option full of proteins and non-fried, so very healthy. And while pakoras are getting cooked in the appe pan, it takes several minutes on each side, so I use the time to do other things in the kitchen. Here I'm filling up the masala box. I just stay around doing things in the kitchen itself. So I made a large number of pakoras, enough for that day as well as for future use. And guess what? Not just curry pakoras, but koftas as well. I have to wait for the curry to cook before I start making the chapatis. So in the meantime, I'll make some preparations to make koftas using a grated lauki. Here you see me making the batter for making koftas with besan, the grated lauki and a few spices. So I'm using the same bowl that I used earlier for making the pakoras. No extra washing. The grated lauki that you saw was from the day before. The day before I had made lauki raita. Instead of storing the leftover lauki in the refrigerator, I grated it all and stored the grated lauki in an airtight container in the refrigerator so that I could use it the next day for making koftas. Now lauki doesn't stay for that long, it tends to get brown, so if you're planning to use it in a day or two, it's good. In the meantime, the extra curry pakoras have already cooled down, so I could transfer them to a freezer-safe Ziploc bag. You could use a freezer-safe container if you wish. So I'll zip it up and squeeze out as much air as possible and store this bag in the freezer. Here I'm using the same appe pan that I used for making the curry pakoras. I didn't wash it. I just wiped it clean with a paper towel. If you're frying your pakoras, then your oil must be hot already, so you could use the same oil. That's the whole idea. Whenever you're working for one meal, just think ahead and plan for future meals as well. There's always something that can be done for the next meal. And then, as I said, that I'll be making chapatis. So that is why I'm in the kitchen. And koftas can be made parallelly while I'm still working in the kitchen. On this particular day, in less than 1.5 hours, I prepared the curry and rotis for lunch and prepared extra pakoras and extra koftas. So that would take care of at least 3 more meals and some pakoras for snacks. So all that was accomplished in less than 1.5 hours. And once these koftas cool down, I would store them in the freezer the same way I did for the curry pakoras, in a freezer safe bag. And I had also made some extra rice the day before, actually the night before, to go with this curry. On another occasion, you see me roasting semolina. Whenever I buy semolina or suji, I lightly roast it, and then once it cooled down, I store it in an airtight container. So whenever I'm making halwa or upma, it becomes very easy for me, saves me a lot of time. And now since I'm in the kitchen to roast the semolina, I have to watch over it. Here I'm making some besan ke gatte. So I have this besan with a few spices and I'll make a dough out of this. And here again, I'll make gatte for lunch and some extra for future use. Now whether it is curry pakora or gatte or kofte, all these are part of my regular meals. So I'll be coming to these after every few weeks. Now these may be just examples for you. They may not belong to your cuisine. So you could choose, based on these, you could choose what works best for you. What are the things in your cuisine that you make very frequently? Making a larger batch of those and storing a part of those for the future use will make a lot of sense. Like maybe fermented batter for dhokla or for idli and dosa, or say malai kofta, or a cookie dough, or falafel. Whenever you're making these things, always make a larger batch so that in the next few weeks you can come back to these and make these meals much faster. Now gatte can be made several ways. Here I'm making the boiled version. And while the gatte boiled, the semolina has also been lightly roasted and has now cooled down. So you see me transferring it to an airtight container. Once all the gatte have boiled, I'll allow them to cool down, chop them into pieces, keep aside a few for that day's lunch, and store the rest in the freezer. When storing in the freezer, always please take care that it is a freezer safe bag or a container. And putting together a meal is so easy with my versatile masala ready, the tadka ready in the fridge. I just blend it with little water, get a smooth paste, and mix it in with spices and these gatte, and I have a dish ready. And you can just imagine how fast it would be the next time when I have gatte in the freezer and the tadka in my fridge. I have to just put them together and a new dish is ready. Here I would like to mention that all these things that I'm storing in the freezer are for backup use only for me. I take these out of the freezer only when I do not have time to cook from scratch. Like maybe I'm late from work, or running around with the kids' activities, or feeling under the weather, or in the rush hours of morning when I have little time at hand. At all such times, all this pre-preparation that I have done earlier comes in so handy. It is like a boon. I'm able to put together an Indian meal for my family, and which is much better health-wise and more economical than a restaurant takeaway. In the normal course, I cook fresh meals wherein all the pastes that I showed in part 1 come in very handy. Here's another thing that I do on a long-term basis. You see me sorting cilantro leaves. I'm separating the stalks from the leaves. I'll be stirring the stalks separately, and the leaves I'll be using for various chutneys and also for everyday use. They are going to last for anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks once stored properly. I have already shared a video about how to store cilantro for a long time. I'll share the link to that video here. Here you see me making a cilantro yogurt mix for making dips and spreads. Now I'll be using cilantro leaves, green chilies, garlic and yogurt to make this mix. The amount of ingredients that I have added gives me a large quantity of this mix, and this has to be added to yogurt to make the dip. I make this mix in a large quantity and store it in the freezer in ice cube trays. Once the individual cubes have frozen, I transfer them to a Ziploc bag, a freezer safe Ziploc bag. And whenever in the future I need a dip or a spread, I just mix it with some yogurt, strained yogurt, and add some salt, and I have a dip or a spread ready. These cubes of the cilantro yogurt mix last in the freezer for several months. And just like I store the cilantro yogurt mix, I also store other chutneys. Here is imli chutney that has been sitting in my freezer for over a month now. I prefer to store imli chutney in small containers and not as cubes. The reason being that this chutney doesn't have much moisture. This doesn't give very hard cubes. So storing in small containers, and each time I am preparing some chaat, I take out a container or two. Another thing I do for long term is making ghee at home. I use organic unsalted butter. I buy it from my local Costco. Making ghee at home turns out to be very economical, and then I always have the choice that which butter goes into making ghee, whether it is organic or regular, or like butter made from milk of grass-fed cows. So the final choice of what I am eating is with me. This liquid gold, this homemade ghee, is so aromatic, is so very flavorful. None of the ghee that is sold by different brands in different stores can even come close to this homemade ghee. I store some of this on the kitchen shelf and the rest goes in the refrigerator. Another pre-preparation that really comes in handy is powdering a few nuts. I usually have powdered cashew nuts and powdered almonds. So whenever I have to make some dessert, maybe say kulfi or kheer, or I'm making malai koftas or cutlets wherein I need some stuffing of dry fruits, I can use this right away. So they are ready to use. Or I'm making makhani gravy, like shahi paneer or malai kofta or butter chicken or any dish that requires thickening of the gravy. These powders come in very handy. I do not powder the nuts completely. I keep some small pieces and some powder, and I store this in airtight containers in the refrigerator. So friends, these are my meal planning tips for a long period of time. There are many more ideas, many more things that I do, which I'll be sharing in future videos. I'd love to know about your feedback about this video. Do share it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, do give this video a thumbs up and please share it on your social networks. And don't forget to subscribe to Poonam's Kitchen on YouTube. A click on my picture on the screen will take you to the channel on YouTube. While subscribing, please also click on the bell icon. That way, whenever I upload a video, you will get an instant notification. Thanks once again. I'll see you very soon with a new recipe or a new tip. Till then, bye.